Thank you all for joining us for today's Charting Your Financial Future Money Management for Creatives workshop. Today's the first of a series of 3 webinars, and today's presentation is focused on mapping out success, sort of charting that initial map for your financial future. Today's webinar is co-hosted by CBCA. I'm Meredith Badler. I'm the Deputy Director at CBCA, which stands for the Colorado Business Committee for the Arts. This webinar is going to be led by our partners at Ent Credit Union, and we'll give them a chance in a moment to share a bit more about Ent and what else they offer. And CBCA's Advancing Creative program is actually supported by Ent, as well as the Kenneth King Foundation. So thank you to them. A few Zoom housekeeping items. We are on the Zoom webinar platform for those that are watching live with us today. That means your mic is off, your camera is off. That just gives you a chance to really focus on today's content and presentation. But we still want to hear from you. So make sure you can find your way to your chat feature. Open up your chat and introduce yourself. Let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, and maybe what you do. If you're an artist, a performer, if you own an art space, let us know who you are. And then we would also would love to be answering your questions throughout today's presentation. So there's a great Q&A feature that'll make sure we see your questions, they won't get lost, and we'll be able to address those throughout the presentation. So find your Q&A, find your chat, introduce yourself. We also have closed captioning available. You should see something at the bottom of your screen about closed captioning or subtitles. Turn that on if it's helpful for you, hide it if it's not. As I mentioned, we are recording today's presentation. So if you're watching this later through CBCA's website or our YouTube channel, hello to you. We're glad you found your way to this content and hope you find it helpful. Now I'm going to turn it over to our partners at Ent Credit Union. And I think Tracy, you're up first.
Thank you very much, Meredith, for the little intro. So you guys are with me in my car today. Some of my days roll like this. Some days I'm in an office. I never really know. So we're really excited to have you guys on with us to start the financial education journey. And we're excited to just be here with you on this journey. And like Meredith said, we would love to communicate with you guys through chat. We'll be monitoring it between the 4 of us that are on, and just make sure that we see your questions, comments. The more you engage, the more excited and fueled we get. So we already have a lot of energy, so we'll see how it goes. But my name is Tracy. Bethany is also on, and she is kind of my partner in crime. And we are your representatives that will be your connections for if you have any questions, concerns, feedback, anything like that. Meredith has our contact information and she'll reach out to us directly. I also don't mind you having my contact information. So that's something I'll put in the chat once we get started, so you guys all have it. And on with me is Katie Griffin and Bree Shalito, and they are part of our financial education team. And they're going to do a quick intro of themselves before we get started on the class.
Thanks so much, Tracy. I'll get started. My name is Bree Shalito. I'm the Senior Manager of Community Education for Ent Credit Union, and just really excited that you all are here and that we get to talk about this topic today. I'll pass it over to Katie. You'll get us started.
All right, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Katie Griffin. I am the Community Education Coordinator here at Ent Credit Union. And I have spent a little over 12 years in the financial industry. And a lot of that time has been spent in the branches, where I've gotten to see a lot of different situations and scenarios and ways that we can help our members. And it's been, such a great opportunity. And when I'm not at work, I really like to focus on my wellness. So physical wellness with snowboarding and hiking and running, and my mental wellness with meditation. And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of times we forget how important that financial wellness part is. And it can be a lot harder to focus on those other aspects of wellness when that financial wellness piece isn't down. I'm going to share my screen here. All right, great. So today, Bree and I are going to be talking to you about mapping out success. So what does that even look like? Everyone's journey is going to look a little bit different. And especially in, some of you in your field of work where there might be some fluctuation of income going on. But today we're going to give you some tools and some things to consider to help you map out your plan, help out how you're going to map out getting to success. But before we jump into what success looks like, we need to remove any barriers that might be in our way. And oftentimes, those barriers come in the form of misconceptions. So there are all these misconceptions out there that creating a budget and having a budget is this awful chore. Oh my God, it's the worst. I don't want to do it. And it means that I can't have any more fun anymore. I'm going to have to tell my friends that I can't go out because I'm on a budget now. So I spent my first 2 years of college as a music major and was regularly trying to get hired for gigs so that I could have some income coming in. And do y'all think I was making a budget? No, not even a little bit. I had no idea where my money was going. And those were the times where I had to tell my friends that I couldn't go out and have fun because I didn't know where my money was going. Some other misconceptions out there are, oh, I can just budget in my head. I don't need to put a plan down on paper or anything. So we see that a lot in the branches. You will have folks come in and they're super stressed out because, they thought they could just budget in their head, but their account's empty. They have no idea where their money went. And we'll go through their transactions line by line, and it's really eye-opening for them to see where their money is going. Some more misconceptions are, well, there's always going to be unexpected expenses, so why even bother? Or, well, I don't know what my paycheck's going to be from month to month, so why should I even make a plan? So it's those unexpected expenses and those unknowns are why creating that budget and sticking to that plan is so important. I have good news for you. Reality of budgeting is actually pretty great. So creating that budget and maintaining that plan and sticking to it gives you that confidence to know that your needs are being taken care of. You can set some aside for savings and you can still have fun and enjoy your life. It can be really difficult to not know exactly how much income you'll be generating from month to month, but taking that time to create and maintain a budget that works for you, that's going to help provide that reassurance that everything is going to be covered. And understanding where your money is going is a huge one. Before I actually started budgeting, it was like my paycheck was part of this magic disappearing act. So I would get paid and poof, it's gone. No idea where my money went. And that is not a good feeling. But what does feel good is having that plan and knowing that my needs are covered and I can save some. And I mentioned snowboarding. Y'all, that's an expensive hobby. So I want to know I have some set aside so I can purchase that next piece of gear that I really want. And we'll talk about getting started with a budget here in a moment, but a really great first step with understanding where your money is going is pull your statements from the last couple months. Take your last 3 months, go through all of your expenses, categorize everything, get some different colored highlighters, and it can be really an eye-opening experience to see where your money is going. And also, life happens. Life happens to all of us. About a year ago, my husband and I, we bought a townhouse, very exciting. And we got all moved in, everything was great. And our very first morning, I'm down in the basement where the washer and dryer is, and my husband's upstairs taking a shower. And I started to hear a noise that you really don't want to hear on your first morning in your new house that you just bought. And I look up and there's this really big pipe that's coming out of the ceiling. And there is just water coming down all sides of that pipe. And my heart sank. We just, spent all this money getting this house and moving. And now we had this, unexpected expense. And as much as that situation really sucked, it wasn't as stressful as it could have been because we had been preparing for those life happens, what if situations. We had some set aside to cover if anything like that came up. So we were prepared, still sucked, but wasn't as stressful as it could have been because life is going to happen. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. So we're mapping out success here. And like I said, everybody's journey is going to look a little bit different. I think that we can all agree that our destination is going to be financial security. And creating a budget is a very personal thing. And the first step in creating this budget is just being realistic with where you are now. You'll be realistic with, have you ever created a budget before? Or maybe you created one 5 years ago and things change. Have you reevaluated that plan and looked for ways where you could adapt? And be realistic with differentiating between what your needs are and what your wants are. Bree's going to step in here in just a moment and talk about needs and wants, but just being honest with where you are in the moment, and then also what your minimum is for covering those needs every month. But especially with a fluctuating income, it's important to have that baseline and know, okay, this is the minimum that I have to have every month to cover these needs. And also, what goals do you have? Those are going to be specific to you. Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to pay off your credit card debt? Do you want to be able to retire early and sail around the world? And your budget is your plan to get you to those goals. I mentioned that I like to run, but I'm not going to wake up tomorrow morning and run a marathon because one, that's probably going to be really painful. And two, there's a good chance I'm not going to actually finish because I don't have a plan in place to get me to that goal. And that's what your budget is going to be. It's going to be your plan to get you to where you want to be. And also consider, what are your priorities? Your budget is going to be a direct reflection of what your priorities are. So you owe it to yourself to take some time and just really consider everything. So we've established that, okay, creating a budget is important and it's something that we need to do. How do we even get started? So I'm going to pass it over to Bree here, and she's going to show us the way.
Thank you so much, Katie. So Katie talked about a couple different methods. They're certainly going through your statements and highlighting. There's also plenty of tools. We'll talk about one a little bit later, but certainly your institution, your bank, credit union probably has a tool to kind of figure a lot of these things out so you can leverage that technology where you need, especially if this doesn't seem that exciting to you. If you're not into highlighting, some of us are, love to get those different colors out. Use technology to really figure out where you're spending your money. What we're going to talk about now is a way to get started if you have never created one before, if you're just looking to kind of revamp what you've got right now. It's called the 50-30-20 rule of budgeting. Kind of breaks it down into 50% being towards your needs, those things that you have to have every day in order to survive. 30% being the wants, because of course we've got to have a little bit of fun. We're speaking to creatives today. People are really fun people. So you want to be able to use some of your money on the things that you love to do. And then also some money on savings and paying off debt. 20% going to savings is also covering your goals or anything that you're paying off there. So before we jump into some more, as we're kind of going through this, please use the chat feature, if you will. If you guys want to start putting in some things that you think should fit into that 50%, what do you think that those needs are? If you don't mind just using the chat, we'll give you guys just a second to do that. And while you're putting those in, Katie, if you don't mind going to the next screen, we'll just show you kind of a breakdown of what that 50-30-20 looks like on $1,000 income. Now, we understand, and as Katie's addressed, that as creatives, oftentimes your income is not typical to what it is for somebody who works 9 to 5. So it isn't something that you're getting a paycheck every 2 weeks, or maybe you are, maybe you work a part-time job, full-time job outside of what you do as a creative, but definitely important to kind of get an idea of what those incomes are, even if they do fluctuate. So if you're kind of dividing that up on what that needs to be. So let's see here. So far, you guys have for needs, we have utilities, phone, rent, car payments, expenses. Yep. The needs are mortgage. Yep. Shelter, food, clothing, utilities. Yep. All seem pretty necessary. You're right with that, Stephanie. Food, healthcare. Yeah, Katie, let's talk about what those needs are here next. So the needs break down to really be exactly what you guys are talking about. Housing, someone said hair, nails. If that's for you, then that fits into your bucket. The best part about this is you get to decide what goes into the 50, what goes into the 30, and what goes into the 20. That's up to you. So housing, cell phone and internet, that may have used to be a want. That is no longer a want. Those are things that we have to have. You guys couldn't be here today if you didn't have internet. So we appreciate you joining in, and it's a need. Utilities, got to keep our lights on. It's Colorado. The temperatures fluctuate here. I don't think any of us would do great in the winter without some form of heat. Food, transportation, clothing, all very key things to actually living through what we need. The wants do fluctuate just a little bit more, and depending on where you want to be. If Katie moves to that next slide here, we'll see what those wants are. Some of these may also be a need for you, just depending on what you do. Restaurants, takeout, certainly as the work that you all do, sometimes you aren't home for those typical times that you're going to be eating breakfast, lunch, dinner. Packing your own sometimes also doesn't seem that reasonable for what you all are doing. If you're actually out and there's not going to be a refrigerator or something that you're working on, planning your schedule around it is huge, but sometimes that fits into that needs budget. Entertainment, certainly as creatives, you know that going out and seeing some different things and being a part of the industry that you work in is huge. You have to be able to do that. Let's see, I saw Meredith said something about Netflix here. I feel like Netflix has become a need instead of a want, right? If that's something that's what you need to stay sane. Katie talked about mental health being important too. That's a need. Stick that right in that 50%, but know where these things are falling for you so that you can properly plan. Travel, same thing. I mean, there's travel that's just for vacations, but there's also travel for work, travel for family. There's lots of travel that fits into both areas. Electronics, maybe not the newest, most up-to-date electronics, but sometimes for your jobs, you need those things too. So falls in there. The difference between clothing and fashion definitely rides that line for some people too. We're a society that is clothed. We all must be clothed today. Well, not all of you, I guess. Some of you are on camera, so we'll let you keep that to yourselves. But in order to go out, a lot of times the cultural norm is that we're clothed. So let's make sure we keep buying those. That's important. And then we also want to talk, and we'll talk a little bit more about subscription services. So thanks for that, Meredith. Netflix is definitely on that line too. So want to pass it over to Katie to see how this fits into your life and your values.
Thanks, Bree. So again, this is a very personal thing. So it's worth it. Take the time to reflect on what it is that's important to you. We talked about goals. Do you want to retire early? Do you want to pay off your credit cards? One of my goals right now is to get one of those really awesome vans that has like a bed and like a little kitchen area inside of it. So I can just go on adventures like on long weekends and, have that freedom. That's important to me. But what's important to you? Do you want to be saving up for your kids' college, or have a lunch budget so you can get out and clear your mind and go get some good food? It's going to be specific to you. And it's also a shift in your mindset. Being conscious of what you spend your money on doesn't mean that life has to be boring now. If anything, it could be even more fulfilling because you're being intentional with your spending and there's more purpose behind it. So my dad owns his own business, and his income every month depends on how many subscribers he has for his service each month. And as much as we would love that number to stay consistent every month, I am sure you can all guess that that is not the case. And I've seen a huge shift in his mindset over the years as he's realized just how important it is to create a plan and create a budget that works for him, and then monitor his spending, as being aware of where his money is going so that he can make sure those needs are covered and he can get some in savings. It might not be always 20%, but at least something, something that he can put towards it. And it took some time, but he got there, and it was being intentional with his spending that eliminated a lot of that stress for him and allowed him to be able to work towards some goals. And something that helped him was getting more organized with categorizing what it was that he was working towards. So check out your online banking, whatever bank or credit union that you work with, and see how you can get creative with setting up some different accounts. Sometimes having that visual to connect with can be really, really motivating. I love this one, the trip to Tahiti. Right now, I am all about getting away for some kind of tropical vacation. Just give me the beach and some sunshine and one of those like fun drinks that has a little umbrella in it. I have to have the umbrella in there. That's another dream and goal that we have right now. So we reevaluated our spending and made some adjustments, set up another separate account like this so that we could put money towards that and have that visual connection with it. I also love that this example has tacos. This person loves tacos, and y'all, I get that. I love tacos so much. Best food ever, hands down. They just make my heart so happy. But what is it that makes you happy? What is it that you have a connection to that's going to motivate you? And are there any little expenses along the way that are kind of tripping you up some? So I moved to Colorado about 4 years ago, and used to live in North Carolina, and I belong to a gym that charges $10 a month. And with all the busyness of moving, I forgot to cancel my gym membership, and they kept taking out that $10 a month. And it can be really easy to let $10 a month slip by without even realizing it. And I hate to say that it was an entire year before I realized that they were still taking $10 a month out of my account. Do y'all know how many tacos I could have bought with all of that money that went to this gym that I wasn't even going to anymore? So the point is with this story is just be mindful. Be mindful of these little things that can add up so quickly. And those are the things that can throw you off track. And so ask yourself, where do you have little expenses that keep adding up for you? A common one for a lot of us is going out to eat. It was fun to go out to eat, and you swipe that plastic and go about your day. And before you know it, you've gone out to eat every day of the week. And those expenses just kind of keep adding up without even realizing it. So I'm going to turn it over to Bree here, and she's going to step in and walk us through what something like that can actually look like.
Thank you, Katie. I am a huge person that likes to go out to eat. That's my favorite, out to lunch, out to dinner. So I fall into this category all the time. But if you guys kind of want to use your chat again, if you don't mind, we're going to just go through this and just talk about what the average cost for a lunch out in America. So just talking lunch, it can be, doesn't necessarily need to be a restaurant. It can be just kind of a fast casual. What do you guys think the average is for lunch out? Let's see. So we have a guess of $15. Thanks, Austin. 16. Guys are awfully close. 12. Yep, guys getting closer. What is it, Katie? The average cost is $8.80. So maybe we skipped the drink, maybe we skipped the fries, but $8.80 is our average. The average brown bag lunch, however, quite a bit less, coming in at $2.45. So I'm sure this is already adding up in your minds, the difference here. So what we're not saying, and what we haven't been saying this whole time, is stop going to lunch, stop doing the things you love. Meredith even put in the chat the equipment that you all use for your jobs, depending on whatever your discipline is. That can be very expensive stuff. It's just figuring out what is most important to you, kind of what Katie was talking about with your values. If going out to lunch means getting to see friends, getting to see people, that's hugely important. And that makes a huge difference in your life versus just stopping in at the drive-through. A lot of other people use coffee as an example. And I understand that coffee is very important in some people's lives, but is it the coffee that you get every day from the local coffee shop there through the drive-through that's $6 or $7? Or is it making your coffee at home and figuring it out? Coffee may be important, but what version are you meeting someone? So those make a huge difference. So the annual cost of eating out 5 times a week definitely adds up fast to that $8.80. That's $2,288. If we instead chose to only eat out twice a week, maybe those days that our friends can join us, or that it's actually going to make a difference, or on a day that it makes sense because they've got a Taco Tuesday special. We save that for Tuesdays and Thursdays, right, Katie? That's our going out to eat days. We can actually save ourselves, just by cutting down a couple times a week, $990. If we're talking about some expensive equipment that you guys need for what you do as creatives, that could help a lot. Could help a lot of us have that $990. So we're not talking about slowing down, not spending money on the things that you love, the things that make a lot of sense to you. More so just evaluating what those things are, looking through your statements, seeing where your money's going is number one. Katie already talked about that. Know where your money's going. That's your money. You earned it. Find out where it's going. And if that's where you want it to be going, is what we'd like everyone to evaluate. The other thing is subscription services. Katie talked about her gym membership. That added up pretty quickly. That's a lot of tacos, Katie. $120 worth of tacos. I would have liked to join you for those. That could have been a great night. But instead, you paid a gym membership that you didn't step foot into for a year. We've all done that at some point or another, not really realized what was adding up. And especially today, subscription services is huge. So this is a survey that was done on a fair number of people. And when they asked those individuals to take 10 seconds to guess how much they're spending on their subscription services, those people thought that they were spending a total of just $79.74, which is still a lot, but they were given only 10 seconds to think about it. That's how much they thought maybe Netflix, Disney Plus, their subscription for their dog box every month, whatever they were getting, that's what they thought it added up to be. When they were given 20 seconds, they thought about it a little bit more, added a few more things in. They came up with a figure of $111.61. So it went a little bit higher. But when they were actually asked to dig into their statements, pull everything out and go through those numbers, they discovered that what they were actually spending on subscription services every month was $237.33. That's the average American household spending on subscription services, which adds up to be a lot. And as Meredith said earlier, Netflix for her has become a need. We get that. We completely understand that. But if you have Netflix and Amazon Prime and Disney Plus and Hulu, which one are you watching most often? And could you maybe cancel some during certain parts of the year and reactivate them later as the new season comes out? Does that make sense? It makes sense to stay on top of it so that you can actually be using that money for better stuff, more things that are more exciting to you is really the main key point there. So just making sure that you're reviewing those subscriptions, seeing what makes sense to you and making sure that those fit in with your values, as Katie was saying earlier. So subscription services can be tricky. What we were talking about earlier as well is also leveraging technology. If you can leverage technology with your current institution, whether that be a bank or a credit union, definitely do that. We have a tool at Ent called Money Insight. And what that tool does, and there's other tools like it, there's Mint. If you check with your own, they're probably tools similar, but you can actually log in and pull all of your accounts into one place. So if right now you're using your bank and then maybe you've got a credit card and something else over here, it's really easy to lose track of where your money's going because you have to log into 3 places to even find out. So with a tool like this, you can pull in all of your accounts. You can see them all in one place. It allows you to track and categorize your spending into a different budget that works better for you. Sometimes for people like me, it shows exactly how much I'm spending on what I maybe don't want to. And sometimes it's a kind of a shock where your money is going when you really didn't realize it before. Really just really helps make your goals when you're putting your money into a place that makes sense, where you can actually see that you're spending in these certain categories and determining whether that's where you want to be. If you are a member of Ent, you already have this tool accessible through your online banking. And like I said, your bank or credit union, whoever you're with, probably has a tool similar. If they don't, we also have a non-member version of this that's available through the App Store. You can download that for free. So whether you're a member of us or not, or of another institution, that's phenomenal. Just check and see if there's a tool that might help you a little bit easier with this through your spending there. And then we also want to make sure that you guys know that we do have other resources on our website. We're also so excited to offer this as a series. Our next class is going to be talking about credit. So we know that's a huge topic. So we'll be excited to talk to you folks about that too. But on our financial wellness site, just right on ent.com, you don't need to be a member to access some of these tools. We've got videos, guidelines, lots of different things that you can follow to just get your financial wellness in order. I know that Meredith put it in the chat that if you guys have questions, you're more than welcome to use the Q&A feature or the chat feature. Thank you also for adding that in, Meredith. Next webinar in the series is next week, June 17th, and it's called Encompassing Credit. So we'll dig into what credit is and what it means to you. But we'd love to field some questions, or Katie, if there's anything you have to add on what we've talked about today, you could do that too.
Yeah, no, I'd just love to open it up to have some more conversation with y'all. Whatever questions that you have, throw them in the chat and we can get those answered for you.
So it looks like Meredith put a question in here and she's asking if we have any recommendations on a good budgeting software or tool. A lot of people do use QuickBooks. QuickBooks, if you're certainly managing some version of a business, there's also Quicken that you can use for your personal tools. But there are a lot of free ones out there too. We recommended Money Insight, which is a tool that Ent uses. But if you log into your online banking with whatever financial institution you use, they may have a similar tool. If not, there's also Mint. That's one of the most common ones that's out there, a personal and financial management tool. And then there's also Personal Capital is another one that's pretty highly recommended, but those can be really, really helpful.
I have one that I like to use. I love using the Money Insight because the bubbles, like I'm a very much a visual person. So I love having the bubbles to be able to track what I'm spending. And then I also on the side use an app called Good Budget. And with Good Budget, you can plug in, like, for example, I have a good budget for my groceries and for my going out. And I budget $500 a month for my groceries. So I put it in the app on the first of the month, $500. And then every time I go to the grocery store, I'll plug in how much my trip was. And again, it's another great visual tool for me. It just shows me how much of that 500 I've spent throughout the month. And it tells me if I'm ahead of schedule, or if it'll say, oh, you're a little behind schedule, maybe try not to spend for 2 days or something like that. So Good Budget, that's another good app to have on your phone also.
Did you guys
Another
see
question
there's a couple? Okay, thanks, Bree.
Sure. That came in the Q&A from here we have is it important to separate out retirement savings from other kind of savings for budget or tax purposes? It definitely can be. So there are certain tax products that you can use that can be helpful during tax time. Those are going to be IRAs, so individual retirement accounts. There's also other tools that you can use usually when you speak to financial experts on the investment side. So that's a great question. Just depending on your individual situation, those can be hugely helpful for tax time. You can usually open those at any financial institution, or depending on if you're wanting something that's going to have just different rates of return, we definitely recommend speaking with an investment professional that can go over some of those options. Also, if you are someone that maybe works part-time or full-time with a company that offers a 401k, definitely take a look and see if there is a match, because if there is, you definitely want to make sure that you're taking advantage of getting the match with that employer. Typically, those are anywhere from 1% to 5%, sometimes even higher, but you'd be leaving free money on the table if you weren't at least contributing to get to those percentages. So if you are a creative that works with a company that has a tool like that, then that's definitely something that we'd recommend looking into. Katie, any other ones I'm forgetting?
I was just going to add on to that the 50-30-20 model that Bree went over, keep in mind that is your net pay. So that's the pay that you're taking home every month. So if you are working, like Bree said, part-time, like with a company that does offer some kind of 401k, that's coming out of your paycheck and going towards that retirement savings before you get your take-home pay. So that 20% savings in that model is going to be different from that. And it doesn't have to be, 20%. That can be kind of a daunting number, especially when you're getting started. So keep in mind that that's, that 50-30-20 is going to be unique to you. So if you need to start out with, putting 5%, towards your savings, then, it's getting started with something.
Or even $5 a month, right, Katie? Something makes a difference. It can really make a difference just knowing that you've got that kind of financial safety net to be able to take care of an issue if something were to arise. Just the amount of pressure that comes off of your shoulders, knowing you've got a little bit of money set aside can be huge. So another question that came through of, are there privacy issues with sharing your financial data with budgeting apps on the App Store? That is a phenomenal question. You definitely want to make sure that anything that you're downloading does have really those safety measures in place. The tool that we referenced earlier, Money Insight, that's the tool that we use. It does have a double firewall. So not only is it covered under Ent's online banking protection, but also the company that we partner with to actually protect that data. The other important thing with most of those is you can view all of the information, but I haven't seen one where you can actually transact. So let's say I have an account with Ent and I also have an account with Wells Fargo, for example. I can load both of those accounts into this tool where I can see them, but I couldn't necessarily use it to transfer between Ent and Wells Fargo. So I can see the information, I can log the information, categorize it, but it doesn't actually allow me to withdraw it, transfer it, anything like that. So that's always a huge important piece of the security features. It's great to be able to view it. And in fact, sometimes having them in one place, you can catch things faster than if you were logging in, especially if it's maybe a credit card that you don't access very often. If you maybe log in once a month just to make sure that everything's okay, you don't really use that one. If you're logging into this one more often and something does pop up on that card, you're likely to notice it that much faster. So it can actually add some security measures in place of your already existing plan.
Oh, what other questions do y'all have? Let's see. So any recommendations on how to keep track of spending? Spreadsheets or budgeting tools? So I will say that is just like how I mentioned that budgeting is going to be unique to you and it's a very personal thing and it's what works for you. Same thing with tracking it. It is what works for you. So are you a spreadsheet person? My husband works with Excel all day, every day for his job, and he does things with Excel that I didn't even know was possible. So if that's something that you're fluent in and you go for it and do that. For me personally, like I said, I like having those visuals. So using like these different apps and online tools is what helps me kind of keep track of that spending. I like to record my expense as soon as it happens rather than hanging on to the receipt. And that's just for me because I know I'm going to lose that receipt. I'm as soon as I get home, that piece of paper is going to be gone. I'm not going to know where it is. So it's, what works for you. If it works for you to keep track of your receipts and once a week, Sunday mornings while you're having your coffee and you want to plug everything in and see where you're at, that's one option. Or like I said, for me, like I prefer to do it in the moment. So I can just know just all the time kind of where I stand. But yeah, Bree, whatever else you want to add.
I think that's awesome. And like Katie said, it's very personal. It's up to you on what works for you. If you're someone that sounds very, very stressful, reporting all of those things, don't do that. Don't stress yourself out. If you're not going to stick with it, it's not a good plan. So if it's something that's going to be easier for you and you want to pull those together once a week, once a month, once a quarter, if that makes more sense for your income to go over and see what's making more sense, do that. Do whatever makes sense to you, whatever doesn't just stress you out to the maximum. Even just thinking about it is going to be the key to staying on track with what you're doing and just knowing where it's going. First step, like we talked about before, figure out where it's going. It's the best place to start. You can pull out your highlighters or get into an electronic tool, whatever works for you, but a lot of it does it automatically for you. So, and the other really neat thing about some of the technology is once you categorize something as something, even if it's not what others would do, like big box stores or like, let's say Amazon, it's automatically going to put Amazon in a category that I think it's called like books, services, and something else. If you know that what you typically buy on Amazon is cat toys, that's the most you get a bunch of stuff for your cat, that's what you're using it for, great. Categorize it as pet supplies and it'll ask you, do you want to do this one time or do you want it to always categorize? Well, if that's all you buy, then let's always do that. You can also split it. So let's say you bought half cat toys and half painting supplies. Then you get to decide where those go. And you can also make categories that are just specific to you. If what you need for your specific creative is to put a whole budget to this area for the supplies that you need for jobs, and that'll help later for taxes too, by the way. So kind of helps keep throughout the year. If you put that into its own bucket and you create something of yourself, it can automatically start putting those things into that if you wish for it to do so. So leverage technology where you can. It's hugely helpful when you don't have to do it yourself. It takes a lot of the stress off, and where you can just log in, make sure everything's going where it needs to go, and just be seeing that visual, that looking the way that you intended it for to look. Now, like Katie said earlier, life happens and things come up. So that's definitely a big deal, but just finding whatever works for you in this process is the hugely important piece of everything. So we have another question. If we have highly variable income that changes greatly month to month, such as gigging musicians or artisans who rely on craft fairs, how should they factor that into budgeting? So back to what we were talking about earlier with it being personal, depending on what you do for work. And certainly if you're someone that's doing gigs, or if you're depending on craft fairs, a lot of those things happen hugely more so during the summer. So there's fluctuations with that. But just like with other jobs, like landscaping and those things that are going to be more lucrative in certain times of the year, then those are the times where you're really going to want to determine what the needs are. Definitely put your money towards your needs. And those are the times you may need to work on putting aside more of that income during those times so that you can make sure to have that later when times are slower. So I know it can be hugely exciting to get maybe an offering for a piece that you're working on, or something that you're doing, or a part in some sort of production, but resist the urge to spend just because you got that large check. And it can be very hard. We talk about that in any business, that you get bonuses or anything. Is just really using that to your advantage and using that for another time and spreading that out. So if it's going to be, we talk to realtors, all sorts of different areas about similar things where there's going to be a chunk here and then it's going to be slow. Then it's just figuring out how long that you think that that's going to be and just pushing that out. And if it starts even for the beginning, just being minimal, and then you have more later, that's better than running out. Katie, do you have more to add to that?
I was just going to add on that, like Bree said, figure out kind of what your baseline is, what your minimum for your needs are to cover that. And if you do get, let's say that you have a really awesome couple months, get hired on for several gigs and the money's really starting to come in, try to avoid what we call lifestyle creep. So you have your needs that need to be met, and you have some wants, and your savings also. But when we talk about lifestyle creep, what we're encouraging is try to avoid, as more money comes in, spending more money on those wants and those fun things. So determine what you need, and what some of those wants are, so that you can enjoy your life. But if you have a couple months where there's more income coming in, you try to avoid just spending more, because it's exciting. Look at, okay, how can I take this amount that I wasn't expecting and then fit it into my plan, and then see if you have some that you can still go out and have fun with. And it's going to take time. Give yourself the patience and the grace to work through this. You might come up with a plan that works, and then after trying it out for a month or two, you might need to change a couple of things, and that's totally okay. So allow yourself, the time to work through that.
So Justin put in, do you offer a musical artist success roadmap and execution plan? that's a great idea. We don't have anything like that in place today, but I think even if it were to be descriptive to that musical artist success, it still is going to be individual to you. It's depending on the type of gigs that you're booking. Are you working with other people? Are you local? Does it expand beyond local? So just so many factors in all of our personal lives that are going to determine that. So we'd recommend starting with something like 50, 30, 20, figuring out needs, figuring out wants, and then going from there on what works for you. Where do those things fit? What is a need to have? Does that fit in with your personal values? Does it fit into what you need for your work and your goals? And then just going from there. Well, we really appreciate you all. I also wanted to mention that we do actually have a full-time coach on staff. If anyone's interested in any financial coaching, her name is Joan. I can actually put her contact information here in the chat, and you guys are also welcome to reach out through Meredith and Tracy if that's something that you're interested in. It's completely free, whether you're a member or not. Let me just go ahead and get Joan's information here put in. But you can reach out to her if you're looking to do a budgeting session, or if you're just not sure where to start. We put a lot of information out to you today, but if you just need someone's help kind of getting started, she's a phenomenal contact for that. You guys can meet in person, virtual, over Zoom, whatever works better for you. So I'm just going to add her email in here and then also her phone number. So whatever works better for you all to get in touch with Joan, and she can kind of help work through that. She also does credit sessions. So soon in next week, we'll actually be talking about credit for those of you who can make that session or even watch the recording afterwards. But if you want it to get very personal and actually look at your credit and see what you need, that'll be very helpful too, just to speak with her. So I just put her information over there.
Yeah, meeting with Joan, definitely encourage that. As I said at the beginning of the class today, is all of budgeting is a very personal thing. Everybody's journey is going to look different. So doing those one-on-one sessions with a coach, especially since it's free, it's not going to cost any money. That can be really beneficial because that financial coach can then help personalize your unique situation. Does anyone have any other questions for us?
Well, if any questions pop up after we end the session, you can reach out to Bethany's on now. She was struggling a little bit with the Zoom link earlier, but that's my partner in crime. So I put both of our contact information in the chat. But if you missed it or it's way scrolled up at the top, anything like that, Meredith has our information tucked away somewhere that she could get for you. And just kind of as a last little mention, so if you've never heard of us as Ent Credit Union, we're the largest credit union in the state of Colorado. And one of our missions right now, very big focus for us, which is why we have a financial education department that has, oh my gosh, probably 8 people on staff now. And then we have a business development department now. Our primary goal is to get out there and provide financial wellness out in our communities. And we do it for free. And we would love for you to come on board at Ent as a member. We're very passionate about making sure people understand the difference between banks and credit unions. A lot of times that's kind of a struggle. It's not something that's well known out there. So if you have any questions about Ent and the services and products that we offer, reach out to Bethany and myself. We have a lot of promotions going on right now for our members, new members, existing members. Some of that I'm going to share with Meredith to pass along as she would like to. But we really appreciate you guys jumping on today. I hope you got a lot from the class. I always do, and I probably attend two of these a week, and I always get something new out of it. So hopefully we'll see you guys next week. And like I said, feel free to reach out. We are available for any kind of questions that you have. Thanks, Meredith.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Bree. This has been so helpful. We really appreciate you zeroing in on some of the needs of our creative sector, our artists here in Colorado. I know there were many that were on today. So thank you for that. We love Ent. And this is a 3-part series. So today we were just, as you saw, mapping out success, talking about budgeting. Next Thursday at noon, we're talking all things credit. Whew, that is a big one. I bought a house last year. I can tell you credit is important, and something that artists are often very afraid of or don't understand. So join us next week on June 17th, Thursday at noon. Thank you to Ent for offering those Grubhub lunch vouchers. Hopefully, many of you were able to also get something to eat either this morning, or you can feel free to use that for this afternoon as well. And then our last session is June 24th, that following Thursday, talking about financial forks in the road, some of those big decisions. Now that you've made your budget and you understand credit, looking ahead for the future. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Tracy and Katie and Bree and Ent Credit Union for today's presentation. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.